Okay, let's get started. It's still the morning. Good morning, everyone. My name is Courtney Freeman. I'm a grants manager here in the Office of Budget and Management at the City of Chicago. Today, we're going to go over the iSupplier overview of the overview and grant writing, along with the online bidding within iSupplier. So we're going to start off. If I could hit the right button. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're first going to go over the functions and roles within iSupplier, the registration and requirements, what's included on our homepage. We're going to go through the portal, and we're actually going to do a walkthrough at the end. Then we're also going to talk about grant writing tips, and then go through the process of online bidding, where we're going to review the presentation, but then go into the system later to show the iSupplier portal, sourcing of all the solicitations, creating, reviewing, revising, unlocking, and submitting a quote, and also reviewing notifications and acknowledging addendums and amendments within the system. Also, I would just like to state that we will be addressing comments after the presentation, so that I'm able to get through sections, and then we'll address some comments and so forth. Okay, so what is iSupplier? iSupplier is a full service purchasing system that allows agencies to do multiple things. As a delegate agency, you're able to manage all of your information and your account details. You are able to also review and respond to solicitations that the city puts out and upload all of the required documentation. You can submit for RFPs. Also, you can submit for your to submit your invoice for reimbursement, vouchers, which is also stated as a voucher by some departments. So it's just an interchangeable term. And then you're able to communicate with the department that you're actually doing business with. iSupplier, excuse me, is a real-time online purchasing system. So things are current and up to date, and that it is also a requirement with doing some services with the city. So everyone that wants to receive contracts with the city would actually need to have an account within iSupplier to do so. So the general functions and roles. As a delegate agency, you are responsible for registering your organization and maintaining information in iSupplier. You are responsible for doing the research of all the RFP solicitations and submitting your proposals, and then also creating and submitting invoices or vouchers for reimbursement. DPS, which is the Department of Procurement Services, is responsible for the registration of delegate agencies in iSupplier. iSupplier is owned by DPS. They are the keeper of the keys, so then they are the ones that will issue accounts per agency. OBM, the Office of Budget and Management, we manage the delegate agency e-procurement process, and we provide the iSupplier trainings on online bidding and overview, which is what we're going over today. Then we have the grantee departments. The grantee department, which are also the departments that are here discussing their programs today, are responsible for developing and managing the RFPs and programs that we publish. They also provide programmatic specific technical assistance and training pertaining to those programs. And then they also do the review of the invoices or vouchers that are submitted for processing. We then have our finance team they are responsible for all of the audits that are after invoices are approved on the department side. The finance team is responsible for doing the next level review of those invoices and the invoices for payment. But they also will provide the iSupplier training for the invoicing process. Okay, so this is just a couple of links that we are going to go through, and all of this information is available on the eProcurement website, which we will go to later, so you will see the exact same display. So right here, we're just showing the links for the iSupplier homepage, the login and registration, current bids and solicitations, and then training information and alerts. iSupplier has actually had a visual upgrade as of September of 24. So if you have not been in the system as of then you will see that the system has a little bit of a different view. Functionality is still the same. It just now has a blue and white scale view. So things will look a little different if you have not been in the system for a while. But this is what our new iSupplier page, login page looks like. And as the same as before, it is a self-serving system where you're able to go into, if you forgot your password, to go and reset it, and or the username that you use to create your account. Those things are able to be retrieved through the login assistance link. And then you would just follow the prompts. Okay, so once you're in iSupplier, what we're doing right now is that we're just going to be going over the administrative tab. So once you log into iSupplier, you're going to notice the two major things of the work list and your navigator. From the work list, this is where you'll see when things are being submitted and or being done with under your account. You're able to see all of the online messaging updates and notifications under this header. Then you'll have under your navigator, your two major links will be for the iSupplier portal with invoice creation and then the online bidding link. In the iSupplier portal with invoice creation, you will be able to find this is where you're managing your administration information, creating invoices and vouchers, also viewing your contracts and payments. And then under online bidding, this is where you will respond to an RFP solicitation. But for right now, we are going to go and look at the invoice creation tab. We're doing this because we need to get to the administration tab. So on here, if you are able, at the top of the screen, of the first box is going to show what iSupplier looks like, but then we're zooming in on the box below. And so you will see that there are multiple tabs where the iSupplier home is just your main menu. Your orders are all, this is where you'll be able to find all of your contracts and PO releases to date. Finance tab will show you where you can create your invoices, view your invoices, and all of your payments. But we're going to focus on the administration tab where this is going to have all of your agency information, contacts, and uploaded documents. So if you click on the admin tab, it will take you into a more detailed, excuse me, more detailed view of what is in the administration tab. So we first will go through profile management, and now with the new interfacing, everything scales on the left-hand side and will drop down. So after you click on a tab, look to the left, and then you will see additional links that you can click on. And so what we will be looking for is you're clicking on administration tab, then you're looking for profile management, and then under, we're looking for general organization information and then that will get us to where we need to do our attachments. And so within general, all of the attachments, the requirements for all agencies are to be uploaded on this page, and you are able to just go in, add an attachment, name things with the naming convention, and then save. But you can also update and delete from this page. So as you can see on the left side, there's a red box that shows where the add attachments. And then on the right side, you'll see update and delete where there is a lit up yellow pencil and a blue garbage can. Those it indicates that those are active so that you were able to update and delete. When things are grayed out, that is, they're not accessible. Okay, so this is some information that was pulled down from the DPS website of just general requirements. So the things that are required depending on the type of program that you are applying for, but there's also things that are just a requirement. But these are part of the things that need to be uploaded into under the attachments for each account. And so you would need to have your articles of incorporation, your insurance information, your SAM registration status, state of good standing letter, board of directors information, your financial statements, which would be updated annually, the signature authorization, and then if indirect cost is included within this program, the cost allocation plan would be attached. There's also, I will show you on the DPS website where this information can be found because there is more details that pertain to delegate agencies on their site that is easily accessible. Okay, so once we go and we upload all of the things that we need to upload, we are now looking under the profile management to the company profile. And then we're going to now identify the contact directory so that we can make sure that we have the correct people in the system. So once we get to contact directory, you would want to create, and the information that you see is just examples, but you would want to create and or update an active contact. So you can create a new or update an active. So when we are creating an account, what we're going to do is you would just need, I'm sorry, creating a contact. You would have to go in and you're going to fill in the information with the asterisks. So that's the name and email, phone number, things like that. And please keep in mind that emails are very important to us because we use them to communicate to everybody. So just keeping those up to date and making sure that they are entered and not just a name, but it's also required. So an active email is ideal. And then what you need to do per user, like username, is that you would have to identify responsibilities. And I'm going to go to the next tab page so we can zoom in a little. Okay, so within here, we entered first and last name, we entered a phone number, and then we're also going to add the username, which is going to be an email. But also at the bottom, you can see where it shows responsibilities, where I need to either give one or both responsibilities to this user. And the first responsibility is online bidding, and then the second responsibility will be for the invoice creation portal. And so, yes, you can grant someone access to both or just one. Okay, so once you identify the responsibilities, you would then go, you would click the radio button, and then you're going to apply information. Okay, so we have some helpful reminders and tips. So first off, when you have multiple components, this is kind of a one-off, multiple components within an RFP, you will need a unique username per component. And so that does not mean you need multiple accounts. It just means that you need to have multiple usernames. So please keep that in mind because we do have some RFPs that have multiple components within each, not the ones that we are talking about right now, but there are some out there. So then on to the next one. Maintaining updated and accurate administrative and organizational information is extremely important. Please make sure to keep up-to-date info within iSupplier. It cannot be stressed enough about ensuring that people that should have access to your accounts are the ones that have access, and individuals that no longer work for your organization do not have access. And if you have not removed access from those individuals that no longer work for your agency, they still have access. So you would need to make sure to go in and remove that. Do not share your login information and passwords. And then back to the updating agency information and user accounts. The email addresses are very important. That's how we communicate, assigning proper responsibilities, and then making sure your internal controls. You're using your internal controls to assign the appropriate responsibilities to individuals, deactivating users that leave your organization, and then making sure you name all of your attachments properly. And then also flagging the workflow mailer at cityofchicago.org email. This email address is how iSupplier talks to everybody, to the delegates and to us. Please make sure that this link or this email is deemed safe because it can flag to spam, which then in turn you would not see communications that are coming to and from the system. So please make sure to flag workflow mailer at cityofchicago.org, that email as safe and or non-spam, and then it should go to your inbox on a regular basis. And if you are having issues with that, please contact our customer support line at customersupport@cityofchicago.org. Okay, so we're going to take a pause for a second so that we can just go and see if there are any questions for right now before we jump to the grant writing section. If you could please put a question in the chat and or raise your hand so that we can address those questions.
One question in the chat for you, Courtney, is there a limit to the number of user accounts contacts can be created within iSupplier?
There should not be a limit to how many you can create. So no, there should not be a limit. When you're actually sitting under the contact directory, so general, administration tab, excuse me, profile management, under the general information, under contact directory, you should be able to see a list of all of your active contacts. On here, you should be able to go in to update, but then when you're updating, you're able to remove. And so that, yeah, you should be able to walk through the steps of going in to update to remove that individual. If you would like to receive email notifications about all solicitations, we will have to follow up with the actual, you can be added to a list that would then send emails when things are sent out. So then in turn, there is a list that you can be added to that is part of DPS that they do send out. I think it's like a weekly thing. So then we can follow up for that information. Okay, so starting early, very, very important, and making sure that you can log into the system. when a solicitation is released, you're able to go and pull down that information to actually see all the ins and outs that you will need to provide. It is recommended that you, when you're starting early, you're actually building everything offline. And we will go through and I will show you how to pull the details down from iSupplier. But well, actually the solicitation website, but like when you want to come back to iSupplier with a finished product to enter into iSupplier, you do not want to build your actual application in iSupplier because the timing of everything and having to save and technical issues and things like that can become very burdensome. So you would want to build your application, say on paper in Word in Excel before you move it into iSupplier, and you can use like copy paste functions. So starting early is always very, very important so that you can gather all of the information that you need, and making sure that you're able to organize all of your concepts that you're going to be like reviewing, writing about, making sure you're writing persuasively, following all of the instructions within the RFP and making sure you're answering what is asked. Provide strong and concise content because again, you are being everything. The questions are weighted, and so then in turn, you want the highest scores as possible. Using proper grammar, spell check and grammar check are your best friend, and that is another thing. iSupplier doesn't tend to do a spell check for you, so make sure that those things are handled before you enter them into iSupplier. You would also want to make sure you are completing all of the requirements and fields. You don't want to leave anything blank because then that is technically incomplete. Then also double checking all of your documentation prior to submitting, making sure you have gone through all of your internal controls and quality control reviews so that the information you are providing is exactly what you want to display. Reviewing the evaluation criteria with the associated weighted scoring values. There will be questions that could be weighted at 30 points versus something that is at 5 points. You would want to make sure that your 30-point question has meat in it so that you are able to, it justifies the 30 points versus the 5. And then also being honest and forthright, using a checklist, which is something that is very recommended just to make sure that everything is ticked off as you go. And then there are pre-conference, which is technically this. For other RFPs, we do have pre-conferences where it is recommended to make sure you attend. If there are any questions that you would have prior to the application closing, then you can have those things answered. Before you submit, please ensure that you have attached everything that that goes along with your RFP. And then also keeping in mind that you need to submit on time or before the deadline. Um, we're also stating that you want to start early to make sure you can go into the system and sign in and that your user names and or accounts don't have any issues. Because once timing comes to an end where the applications are closing on April 2nd at noon, the system will close down, whether your application is able to be submitted or not. And so if you go in a day before the applications close and you have technical issues, then in turn, those technical issues might not be able to be worked out before the closure. And so you want to make sure that there are no complications on the IT side of you getting into the system way before the 2nd of June. So please make sure you go in and test your accounts to make sure that you're able to do what you need to do in iSupplier. Okay, before we go on to online bidding, does anyone have any questions pertaining to some of the tips for grant writing? If you could put a comment in the chat and or raise your hand.
Jackie, I see your hand up. Let me see if I can answer while Courtney is resolving her issue.
Simple. I put it in the chat too. Most of the
Oh.
portals that I use for government grants, they have a review and submit thing, tab, and they will not, those portals will not let you submit if you are missing required documents. Is iSupplier like that?
It kind of depends on if it has been marked as a required item. So if it is a required item and it has been listed as that, it may not let you submit. Unfortunately, the iSupplier system is not as tech savvy as some of the other systems, I would say. So I would double check everything and making sure that the attachments are there because that's just kind of unfortunately how the system is.
Okay. Sorry, so here we go. Back to online bidding. So the next section, what we're going to do is go over online bidding, which is going to be part of the DPS website. And so this is honestly what it looks like. Everything's going to be like the bright orange buttons. And so that's what you're going to be looking for. So this is just a screenshot of the DPS website. And the orange ribbon is going to be your new best friend. This is where you'll find like just the home button, the online login and registration button, the current bids and solicitation opportunities, online training materials, which we'll get to, and then the delegate button, which is another button that you will want to know about. And so, but for right now, we're going to look at the current bids and solicitations. All you do is click on that section, and then it's going to populate with another big orange button. So we will click on e-procurement bid and solicitation opportunities. Okay, so from here, we're going to do the live demo of this so you'll have a better view of it. So the top section is just identifying what it looks like when Oracle pulls up. I'm sorry, iSupplier pulls up. And then the bottom section is going to show just the areas that you would be looking at. And so the sections would be, you want to look for things that show as a delegate agency event. Then you'll see the solicitation number that is in the third column, which will be a 5-digit number with the or 6, which will include a parenthesis, a comma, with an, due to an amendment. And then you will have the supplier response start date and end date. And then if you look far to the right, you'll see the little eyeglasses, and that shows the details. And so that is where you're going to pull down information pertaining to that solicitation before, so that you can go into iSupplier. And then also, if you look at the top right of the screen, there's going to be the login button that will take you directly into the iSupplier system so that you can then start doing what you would like to do. So now we're back to the iSupplier login. Yes, so this is the home page again, where you can see the work list and the navigator. And before we clicked on the invoice creation so that we could go to the admin tab, but this time we want to click on City of Chicago online bidding, which is going to be the second tab. And so right here, as you can see with the red arrows, you're going to click on online bidding and then also onto sourcing homepage. Okay, so the two sections here. So when you like from the other page of solicitations, if you like, you would have identified an RFP that you would actually want to look up. And so from here, that is what we're going to do. At the top of the page, you will have two ways to do it. Search your select first open solicitations, but if you that the says title, you're going to want to switch number. You can the number because it's just easier for but if you wanted to do it by title, you would have to know the exact name of that program. And then also on link, once you open up or create part of your like a draft, you're able to find that draft under quick links. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to change the drop down to number. And at this time, I had entered 19565. And I will click go. Once I click go, the number will populate below and it'll show as active solicitations. And I will be able to identify or select that RFP number and respond to it. So you will enter the RFP number. You're going to hit go. You're going to select that RFP radio button, and then you're going to click respond. Once you do that, the terms and conditions will populate, which you will need to read through and then accept the terms and conditions to move forward. Okay, so this is where we create a quote and complete our requirements. So we have created a quote for the RFP 19565, and there are going to be two tabs that we will have to pay attention to, your header tab and your lines tab. And then within your header tab, this is where you're going to include all of your attachments. And this is also where you're going to find the requirements and where you're going to enter your answer to those requirements. And as you can see, it's showing a 4,000 character limitation, which includes spaces per section. And so then you would have to go through and make sure that your answers fit within those parameters and or be able to attach, as it was stated, that some agencies do have longer answers. So then in turn, they have a workaround so that those answers can be received. And then also this is where you can you'll be able to view your RFQ, your RFP, the information all at once. And then also you can save your drafts here and continue forward. Once we want to, all the information is filled out, we will want to continue forward so that we can complete our lines. And so this is going to be the budget that you are asking for that pertains to that RFP. And so keeping in mind that you are entering the requested budget into the appropriate lines. You cannot enter a zero into a line that you are not requesting funding for. So if you are not asking for funds under travel, which is 0200, then just leave it blank. Do not put a zero within that cell. And then also that everything needs to be entered in whole numbers. So don't enter a period or a comma. If you need to enter $1,000, you're going to just enter 1000. And then you're also able to save your draft and continue at the top of the page. And once you continue, this is where you'd be able to submit. The submit button would pop up. Okay, so we're continuing forward. Some electronic signatures will populate. You will need to enter your first and last name with the title. You will need to check the little indicator box saying that you will read and acknowledge the disclosure statement, then check the indicator box. And you will need to, then the submit button will populate once those things are completed. And you're able to actually hit the submit button to submit your request, right, your quote. So we're going to pick back real quick to where we showed the draft so that I can show you another way to go and look up your quote. So as of right now, we went through the process of entering some information for that RFP. And now we want to go back and look it up. So we're going to go back to the active solicitations. We're going to enter in the number that we had entered before. And we're going to go again and select what we're going to do is we're going to just select the radio button, the hyperlink of the RFP number. So anything that is going to be in light blue with a line under it is clickable, and it's a hyperlink that will do something. And so at this point, we would identify the RFP number, hit go, and instead of the radio button under select and clicking respond, we're just going to click the hyperlink of the RFP number. This will also trigger the terms and conditions to populate again, so you need to read and accept the terms and conditions. So now we're able to actually see everything that we had entered before. And at the top, it just tells you the RFQ, which is going to be your quote. And then you can see at the bottom is going to show the notes and attachments of all the things that you had that you attached. And then on the top far right under actions, this is where you're able to award by quote. And that's what you would do. I'm sorry. Yeah, you would award by quote and click go so that you're able to submit. Okay, so when we are in iSupplier, the next part, when we are looking for our RFP and managing our drafts, there are a few places that you can look. We're back on the negotiations tab in iSupplier where it says the drop down for search open solicitations. Again, we're going to identify it by number for the drop down instead of title, enter the RFP number and hit go. And now that we have submitted a response, stuff will populate under your active and draft responses. And from here, you're able to pretty much click on the response number hyperlink so you can see what you've submitted. You have the solicitation number where you can click on the solicitation number also to see what is, if you need to submit a new. And then on the far right, you're able to click for full list of everything that you've submitted within your user account. And then also on the quick links box, there is you can see for managed drafts, you're able to then pull information from there for just your quick links. But now I'm just at the bottom of the screen. If we click the full list button, this is what it would look like where everything populates that you have submitted. And this should be a closer look to it, where now you're able to, as you can see, if you wanted to select the response that you have just submitted, you have two options of either revising or withdrawing. And so you would need to click the hyperlink. No, I'm sorry. You would click the radio button to select the response number, and then you would either click revise or withdraw. And then once you do that, the system will then ask you to move forward with either reverting your quote back to the active quote, and or you can save to move forward, save as a draft and continue. And we are, okay, I will come back to questions once I get through the last couple of slides. Okay, so then when you're under managing your draft responses, under your full, not under the full list, but under your active and draft responses, you will be able to see what response numbers are in what state. So you can see that a response is either a draft or in an active state, so that you can, the ones that are in a draft state, you can go in to manipulate. And so from here, as you can see, like they're under your active and draft responses, you can click on the hyperlink to get to the draft of 236163, or you can go to the quick links and manage drafts, and then you would have to identify the response number that you would want to change. Okay, so from here, what we did was we identified that we wanted the response number 236163. We're going to hit go. And for us to manage the drafts, and like we would need to change things, you need to unlock. Okay, can you please unmute your mic? Thank you. To manage your drafts, you would need to be able to unlock it so that you and or other users that within your agency are able to go in and make adjustments to that draft. And so if it's locked, you're the only one that's going to be able to deal with or to handle it. So if you're giving responsibility to someone else in your agency and they have that responsibility, you have to unlock it for them to use it. And so what you would do is that you would select the radio button for that response, and then in the middle you will see under select a draft response, you will see unlock, review and submit, and update. You would need to click unlock first, and then you can either review and submit and or update. And so that way it'll show that the response is unlocked, and that the next individual within who has the responsibility can go in and make updates to that RFP. Sorry, to that response number. Correction, response. Okay, and the last two things we're going to talk about are just like the notifications of how the system talks to you. Under work lists, this is where you will find the communication from iSupplier, the push talking of like things that if the system needs you to do something versus you needing to talk to the department that is issuing the RFP, things like that. Everything will populate in the work list where you are able to communicate with the system. And keeping in mind that this is where the workflow mailer at cityofchicago.org email is very, very, very important because actually this system for the work list within notifications, this is how that email is how the system talks to you, and making sure that you have it saved as spam friendly will make sure that it hits your inbox, because then you will be able to see if a RFP has been amended where you need to resubmit for your application, or if say you submitted an invoice where there was a complication and something needed to be changed, you would need to make sure that you went in and you saw these things, you could make those changes and resubmit for payment. Okay, some helpful reminders for iSupplier. The online discussion is sent to the buyer only. So when you are communicating through iSupplier, it communicates to the buyer of that RFP. Make sure to save your drafts often, and often, big time. And make sure that you are jumping down real quick. Make sure you are not using the back and forth button within iSupplier, within your search engine. You only want to use it within iSupplier because you will kick yourself out of the system. And just making sure that you submit your information before the deadline. Super, super important. I am running up on like 5-minute warning, so I have about 10 minutes left. I do want to address, these are going to be a bunch of links that are available on the DPS website, and you will receive this presentation, so you will have access to them. It's just a bunch of different, they're directly pulled from the DPS website, and I want to get to a walkthrough real quick so that you can see the DPS website live. But I do want to answer a question. I would complete my application offline. If Word is the application you want to use, awesome. But I would complete my applications offline before I entered them into iSupplier to ensure that I had everything I needed before going in to submit. Just like legitimately having my whole stack from start to finish to ensure that, and my checklist to ensure that I was able to submit everything in it without complication. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen real quick so that I can, I'm going to drop the presentation and share my screen so that I can do a walkthrough. I'm going to drop my mic for 1 second. Okay, so what we're going to do is that we're going to shift this out of my way. All right, so starting back, we're going to pick a search engine. Okay, and within that search engine, I'm typing in iSupplier Chicago. First thing that pops up is going to be usually the first thing that pops up is iSupplier Chicago website. And I'm going to go back and look at some current business solicitations. And from here, I'm going to identify the one that I want to look at, which at this point in time, I want to look at this one right here, delegate agency for CDPH. And we are going to go back to the sandbox to make sure we don't do anything in actual production. And we're going to be a delegate agency and sign in. Okay, from here, under Navigator, City of Chicago online bidding, sourcing homepage. Search open solicitations, changing title to number. And we're going to type in the number that I picked, which hopefully will work. There we go. Okay, so this is what it was supposed to do. So once I enter my solicitation number, your RFP number, you're going to hit go. And then you're going to notice underneath, select the negotiation that the information will populate below. So the RFP number is 29560 for Reproductive Health Access Initiative. And then it'll show that the time left for this RFP is showing as 14 days and 22 hours left until it closes. And so what I want to do is I'm going to select the radio button and respond to this RFP. Because I was in here before, I'm going to create a new quote. And now I will need to go through the sections within the header and the lines tabs so that I make sure all the stuff is filled in correctly or filled in. This is where you will add your attachments, where you can go through and enter information. Where you would then choose a file to upload. And you would go through the process of making sure you add everything you need to add. As you can see, here is one of the attachments being added in, where then I can also update and delete that attachment. And then as you scroll down, also, sorry, keeping in mind, time left will always be at the top, showing you the time that is left for the solicitation to be entered, and this is the due date of the solicitation. So then scrolling down a little bit, you will go to all of the requirement information that needs to be entered. This is where the system, the presentation showed 4,000 characters or less. That includes spaces. So all of these cells would need to be entered with something before you can move forward. And so what we're going to do for this instance is I'm going to put test into every cell because I can't move forward without doing it. It also indicates that this is a test. And I can go and
Earlier
show you.
today, there was a question about requirements. Like if you are required, if required information makes you put something in, this is kind of what that is. So this is, you can't leave any quote question blank, but it doesn't necessarily confirm you did or did not answer the question correctly. And it does not, Courtney, correct me if I'm wrong, if there are required attachments, it doesn't always know if you attach those, correct?
That's correct. And that stuff will be like reviewed on the other side. So like if an insurance information is missing, that's going to be flagged, especially by finance, because that's like it's a requirement. And so like certain things will be flagged when you're going through the process, but also these things are being reviewed when you're submitting them. So when you're submitting this application, if you're missing your insurance information, then in turn, like that, I mean, you need that information. So making sure that you attach it is very important, but also knowing that you went back and double checked it to make sure, because um, the department can inform you that it's missing, but at the same time, if the RFP closes and it's not submitted, then your application is technically incomplete because you are missing attachments or required attachments. And so, but going through here, as you can see that some of these things are just names. So it's like, what is your legal organization's name? So just making sure you fill all that stuff in. And I'm just going to keep on going through here. I'm sorry, Chloe, did I answer that fully?
Yes.
Oh, cool beans. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to add test through here and keep on going. All right, and then also keeping in mind that like once you start to see that the information within here starts to become more of a question, that's when you should be adding more of the meat of your answer. And keeping it at 4,000 characters or less. And there just seems to be a lot of questions, so give me a second. There we go. Okay, so now I'm able to save as a draft and continue. We're just going to hit continue because what did it tell me? So I would need to save as a draft to then go to my lines, but what this the error is telling me that I need to quote at least one line within this RFQ, which means that I did not attach my money yet. So I will need to go to lines. So this is a second header, second tab next to header. And within this page is where I'm able to add the budget that I want to request. So I'm going to enter, say for under personnel, let's add $100,000. And for fringe, let's say $20,000, keeping in mind no commas or periods. Let's add in some materials at 10,000. And yeah, let's start there. Okay, so we're going to save a draft. And you notice at the top, it says that it is saved as a draft, so we can continue. And now this is where you're going to review everything as you see it. Like you're going to need to review it, and this is where you can also open these up. But as you can see, it just says test, but this is where your answer would actually populate. Excuse me. And then as you can see down here, these are the lines that we entered. If we need to go back and change those things, you can do that by going back up and pretty much going backwards. And then at the bottom, for us to populate the submit button, for it to pop up, we need to now go in and we will need to add name and title and select the radio button. And there's the submit button. So now we're able to print a view, what you were able to do before, the printable view, but now you can submit. And yay, okay. So now we're going back to the sourcing homepage and you are able to see the active response, the active draft. And so the one above is still sitting as draft form because it was not submitted. The one below was submitted and it is now showing as active. And so now also under quick links, under manage, I would be able to go and select the radio button for the response number that I just entered, hit revise, to be able to go back into the system to do something, right? And so say, for example, I entered the incorrect amount of funding. I don't want money in the places that I have it. I need to go in and say, for example, I don't want materials and supplies. I'm not going to put a 0. I'm just going to delete it. And then I'm going to scroll to the right to see where it says quote and it says yes. I need to now indicate no because I am removing the funds from that line. And I now want to add it to professional services. So we're going to add 10,000 to professional services. And I'm also going to reduce the personnel because we realize we put in too much money. we're just making this up. And so now those things are stating that for personnel and fringe, yes, the quote is there. And then as you notice that all the others will say no, except for professional services, which we have now entered. And so that should say yes. And now we are going to save as a draft. Has been saved as a draft. We're going to continue. We're going to review all the documentation and everything that we have entered to make sure that we've attached everything. We're going to review the amount of funds that has now, you can see, has changed and is reflected as entered. And now we're going to go back down to the bottom to sign. Whoops, sorry, I have to do both. Radio button to indicate and submit. Okay, so this was the process that I was not able to show you earlier, but now you can see, and the response number changes once you update, so then that will change to a different response number. But this is the process of submitting quotes once you pull down your solicitation information from the system so that you can submit. Okay, so yeah, this was the process that we weren't able to do before, but this is how you would go through iSupplier to submit submit a quote for a solicitation. So this part of the presentation will be also shared so that you will have it for documentation purposes. Okay, so Don, do you have a question? Your hand is raised.
All the estimated quantities were one? Are they always one, or do we, if you have more than one personnel, do we, if we have two people, is that two, or how does that work?
That's funding. So you're asking for an amount of money. So that is a budget line. The numbers that I entered were like 100,000 or 1,000, something like that. And so you're asking for the funds, you're not asking for the staff. And so then the personnel funding and fringe costs that go with it would be an amount that you're requesting.
Okay. So in that column that you showed on that page, which was, I think the title was estimated quantity, are those numbers always one? Because it was on what you showed. I'm not sure what that measures.
Hold on one second. It's just for the line. So the estimated quantity has to do with just like it's one line item.
Okay.
So it's at $50,000. Yes,
Okay.
But it's not a person. It's
Good.
money.
Okay.
Okay.
My other question was validate. Between when you do your final save and your submit, do you have to hit the validate button?
No.
Okay. Because I believe that's how it used to be.
No, like the system, like it's doing checks as you go through. And so like you will get errors if things are not entered correctly, it will tell you. So if you enter a period, so that you're entering change, it's going to glitch. It's not going to be user friendly because it will not understand what the change is for cents if you're adding it into the dollars. And so like that will flag something, but you're able to then, the system will tell you if there's a problem. It will flag an error and then it'll say you need to do thus and so.
Okay,
You
that's
can
great
still
because
click the validate
a few
button
years
though,
ago
right,
it wasn't.
Courtney?
It didn't flag the errors. It just told you there was an error. So thanks.
The validate button, we would have to go back and just double check that, Chloe.
Okay, I don't. Yeah, I don't know if it still exists.
Like
The only other question I saw in the chat, where did the chat go? Is do we still need to upload insurance documents even though we're required to use my COI solution?
All insurance documentation still needs to be uploaded, yes. Insurance information is also attached to your account. And so it should be within your account information under the administration tab. And my COI stuff is connected to all of this. So it's like, yeah, but it all needs to be attached.
You are more than able to go into iSupplier prior to April 1st and set up your system. I do actually suggest that if you do not have an account before today and you are interested in applying to the grants that have been discussed today, so any RFP that's going on today, I very much suggest that you set up your accounts prior to April 1st. You do have a significant amount of time to apply for these grants. They do not close until June 2nd. However, getting in the system and understanding how it works prior to this application period will give you the best chance to understand how iSupplier works. So you can go ahead and make your system, and any accounts or any RFPs that are currently live, you are able to go ahead and review those RFPs that are live now as you see fit, and just kind of walk through without actually applying to any specific application. You have an account. I was talking about looking up a bid in iSupplier. DFS grants are not live yet. This is correct. None of the grants we are talking about today are live. They will go live on April 1st. However, if you want to practice walking through the system, you are able to look through other live RFPs today. So if you go to do this. So if you wanted to walk through the system in your account today and you looked at current bids and solicitations, any RFP here for delegate agencies, most of these are not. So DFSS has another application open right now. You could go ahead and look up this application in iSupplier today and kind of walk through the process of the grant process as a whole of iSupplier, and not actually apply to that grant, and also see how the system itself works. And so same thing with any of these solicitations that are currently open. So you can see here that the advertisement date for these were on the 25th and the 12th. The start date was also the 25th and the 12th, and the response date is 28th and April 10th. All of the applications that we're talking about today will have the information with the RFPs that are on the on the CDGA workbook that we published last week. Those RFP solicitation numbers will be listed in this column here, and you'll be able to find them and kind of search for them from there. But any active solicitation that is currently in iSupplier, you are able to look at now. If you want to just review what the requirements are of the upcoming grant applications, the CDGA book that we shared the link for is going to give you information on what those upcoming requirements are. So you can start putting together what your application will look like prior to April 1st, but you aren't going to actually be able to get into the system to apply until April 1st.